my name is Hydo, and welcome to the Pantheon, where it's Crimson Vow, and we're in Precon land. And what better Precon than vampires for this set? And we have Strefan, Maurer, Progenitor, 4 mana for a 3/2 vampire noble legendary creature. Flying, and at the beginning of your end step, create a blood token for each player who lost life this turn. And when it attacks, you may sacrifice 2 blood tokens. If you do, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. So what is a blood token? A blood token is an artifact token that you can tap, pay 1 and sacrifice it to discard a card and draw a card. And, you know, you can filter through your deck. Really, really nice. It gives you some nice artifact sort of synergies. And, you know, who doesn't love drinking blood? Well, vampires do. Not me personally. I'm not into that sort of thing. I'm, you know, a fully alive human being. So, you know, quite a cool card. You know, if you want to go vampires, this is good. You're cheating vampires into play. And you can also cycle through your deck. Name of the channel. By, you know, we're using the blood token. So there's a lot of synergies to go around. So without further ado, let's have a look at my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Please subscribe. I'm going to be making videos like this for every legendary creature. There's tons of them knocking around, but we'll get through all of them eventually. So without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5 for Strefan. And in at number 5, well, what do we have? We've got In the Web of War. This is a really awesome card. 5 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, it gets +2% and gains haste until end of turn. So this is fantastic. The thing about our commander is we want to be attacking with it straight away. Maybe create some blood tokens with some other, you know, things early in the game. Then we come in, attack straight away, get that trigger, put something into play. And the cool thing about this card is when we put something into play, it's also going to get the +2%. So whatever we put in will get slightly larger as well. And it just gives everything haste the turn it comes in, which is great in an aggressive deck. So a really nice card. Then, if you like a creature that does the same thing, you've got Ogre Battle Driver. 4 mana 3/3 Ogre Warrior. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gets +2% and gains haste until end of turn. So absolutely fantastic with the commander, you know, if you've built up some blood tokens, and then when it dumps something in, it's getting the buff as well. But this is just great with any creature that you're going to be playing because you can attack straight away. Similarly, there's Crimson Wisps. 1 red for an instant. Target creature becomes red and gains haste until end of turn. Draw a card, so it cycles through the deck, draws you a card, and just for 1 red, you know, you cast your commander on 5, pay 4 for it, and then the 1 red, swing in straight away. This is a great card. Then there's Flamekin Village. Land, when it enters the battlefield, you reveal an elemental card from your hand. If you don't, enter the battlefield tap. So honestly, most of the time it's going to enter tapped. Taps for a red, so it's on colour, and pay a red and tap target creature against haste at the end of turn. So this is absolutely wonderful. Any big threat that you have, straight away it can swing in for tons of damage. And that takes me on to number 4. And at number 4, we've got Reckless Fireweaver. So we want to be dealing damage to our opponents and sometimes ourselves to be getting those blood tokens with our commander. And this is a great way of using the blood tokens to deal damage. 2 mana, 1/3 human artifact. So whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So the blood tokens that we create are indeed artifacts. And, you know, we're going to be playing a lot of artifact ramp because we're not in green. Every artifact we play, ping, and then at end step we're going to get a couple of blood tokens. Really, really nice. Here are another couple of pingers. We've got Underhanded Designs. 2 mana for an enchantment. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So again, we're spreading that damage around. So we're going to get 3 blood tokens at the end step. And we're gaining a bit of life to sort of help pad out our life total. Then pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy a target creature, activate its ability, only if you control 2 or more artifacts. So again, we're going to want a lot of blood tokens on the field, not only to sack to our commander, but to play cards like this, because not only is this working fantastically with sort of ping theme we've got going on, it's also a removal spell that just sits there and, you know, you shake hands with someone and they go, ah, you've pricked me. And they're dead. Then there's Tunneling Geopede. 3 mana, 3/2 insect. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, we're going to be playing lands. This is just a basic of Magic. So we're getting a great effect that we want in the deck from it. So a great include. And yes, it's not a vampire, so it's off theme that way, but insects, you know, they crawl around, they're in crypts and stuff like that. So, you know, it is sort of thematic. Then Shivan Gorge, a land that has an effect. I love them. It's a legendary land and it taps for a colorless mana. It doesn't come in tapped. That's fantastic. Yes, it taps for colors, but straight away you can use it. And then you can pay 3, tap it, it deals 1 damage to each of your opponents. So it just pings all around, we get all the blood tokens, we can filter through the deck, trigger all these things that are clear about artifacts entering. Then Psychosis Crawler, we want to be dealing damage on our turn, so we're always going to be drawing cards on our turn. 5 mana for a Horror star, so it's Parentum, so that each equal to the number of cards in your hand. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. And the great thing is those blood tokens that we can sacrifice, we're drawing cards off them. So we're going to be, you know, pinging away at our opponents, slowly chipping away at them. Then at the end step, we get loads more blood tokens that we can continue doing that. This is a great game-ending threat, and it could be massive as well if we've drawn 20-odd cards in a turn. 2020, swinging in for lethal. Then Chandra Torture Defiance, 4 mana for a 4-loaded Planeswalker with 4 abilities. 4, 4, 4. Only 3 4s though. Anyway, +1, exile a top card of your library. You may cast it this card. If you don't, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So absolutely fantastic. It's card advantage, digging you deeper into the deck, or it's pinging, making sure you get all the blood tokens. +1, add 2 red mana. Excellent bit of ramp. Then -3, it deals 4 damage to target creature. Just 4 damage, will kill most commanders, or, you know, any sort of minor threat that's knocking about. And then -7, you get an emblem with. Whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. If you get that off, potentially game ending. And then we've got a Blister Spit Gremlin. Oh, what a name that is. 1 red for a 1/1 Gremlin. Pay 1 and tap it. It deals 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, untap Blister Spit Gremlin. So if you're going deep into, you know, Planeswalkers, you know, sort of filtering through the deck through instants and sorceries, this could potentially be a game ender. Just keep going. And it's nice and cheap. 1 mana gets out on the turn you play your commander sort of thing. Then in at number 3, well, what have we got? We've got Confusion in the ranks. And this plays into the idea of the fact that the things that are entering the battlefield are artifacts, the blood tokens. So, Confusion in the ranks, 5 mana for an enchantment. Whenever an artifact, creature, or enchantment comes into play, its controller chooses target permanent another player controls that shares a type with it. Exchange control of those permanents. So, the idea behind this is when we sort of deal 1 damage to everything, we're going to end up getting 3 little blood tokens. Now, our opponents are going to be playing, you know, decent artifacts, you know what I mean? Big sort of Sol Rings, things like that. Our blood tokens enter, we swap them for the Sol Rings, things like that. We just gain control of them. And all they have is a rubbish bit of blood. You know, blood obviously essential for keeping human beings alive. But, you know, in the game of Magic, a piece of blood, not quite as good as a ring made out of the sun. So this is a great card to put in the deck. You know, it could backfire massively, but it ends up creating such fun games. So I'd definitely put this into the deck. Then Inspiring Statue is another great way of using those artifacts. 3 mana for an artifact. Non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise. So your artifacts help you cast the spell. So each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1. So this essentially makes all those blood tokens into mana rocks for all non-artifact things. And we, you know, in this deck, I wouldn't really go heavy into artifacts. I just use it as a little sub-theme. So all of the big vampires and other creatures, this helps cast them magnificently. Really, really great card. Then there's Grinding Station, 2 mana for an artifact. Pay 2, sacrifice an artifact. So the blood is an artifact. Is our blood artifact? I suppose it has iron in it. That makes sort of sense. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Then, whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Grinding Station. So, if, you know, you're really on the mill plan or want to mill yourself to get to that big sort of reanimator target, all those bloods come in, it triggers this 3 times so we can sacrifice each of the bloods in response to mill ourselves for like 9 each turn. Really, really cool card and works well with the artifact synergy. Then Goblin Engineer, if you want to go down the artifact sort of path, or find your Inspiring Statue. 2 mana for a 1/2 Goblin artifact. So when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, put it into your graveyard and shuffle your library. So it gets either of those 2 on the side. Pay a red, tap, sacrifice an artifact, so one of our blood tokens. Return target artifact card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it just switches them, but because it's a token, it just disappears. But we're using something that's not that important to get back a massive piece of our deck, like Inspiring Statuary. So a great card, you know, Goblin, what's it called? The 1 mana one. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, there's a 1 mana version of this that's, well, arguably better, but it doesn't search for things into your graveyard. And that brings me on to number 2. And at number 2, we've got discard sort of based mechanics. And Glinthorn Buccaneer fits into the pinging archetype we've got going. 3 mana for a 2/4 Minotaur Pirate with haste. Whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then you can pay 2, discard a card, draw a card, activate this ability, only if it is attacking. So why is this good? Well, the blood tokens require us to discard a card to draw a card. So we could really play into the discard sort of synergy of that. So we discard using one of the bloods, we ping everyone, then we're going to get loads more bloods at the end step. We can ping, 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 ping. Very similar to the Psychosis Scroller, but it's playing with discard. And discard, you know, drawing cards is great and all, but I love the sort of direction you can go with discard. Things like Bone Miser are phenomenal. 5 mana for a zombie wizard. Whenever you discard a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever you discard a land, add double black. And whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. So this just allows us to really choose what we want to do. And because you're in charge of the discarding, it's not all random. You can say, okay, I need a bit more mana. This land, see you later, double black. Or, you know, you want to draw some more cards. Oh, just such a good card. And you can get to using it straight away. If you've got a couple of ways like to rummage and filter on the deck, this is a great card. Then Conspiracy Theorist is a great card to have out early. 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So a great way of triggering that discard. But whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile 1 of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. This essentially draws us that card back if we're using it this turn. So absolutely amazing, works fantastically with all the discard synergies. If we're playing at instant speed a lot with our blood tokens, we can sacrifice them, discard something, and then cast it this turn, essentially giving it madness. Really, really great card. Faith of the Devoted is fantastic. It also features the word cycling, so it's probably the best card in this deck. 3 mana for an enchantment whenever you cycle or discard a card. Cycling, you know, is discarding a card, but, you know, they had to clarify that. You may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Excellent way of padding our life total and a great way of triggering our blood token creation from our commander. Then there's Ange Falconwrath, and these are sort of some madness cards that work amazingly with discard synergies. 3 mana, 1/3 Vampire, Ange, and I hate that name. It just disgusts me. Anyway, haste, tap to discard a card to draw a card. Whenever you discard a card, if it has madness, untap Ange. So you can trigger tons of discard synergy and put all of the cards into exile and cast them with madness with Ange, and then keep filtering through your deck. So a wonderful card. Here's a couple of creatures with madness that you might want to play. Ange's Ravager. 3 mana, 3/3. It attacks each combat if able. Whenever it attacks, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. So a great way of triggering all of those discard synergies, and you're refilling your hand. Yes, only with 3 cards, but you might, you know, discard 3 cards. Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 3, then you draw 3 other cards. Oh, amazing. Then there's Stormkirk Occultist. 3 mana for a 3/2 with Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library until the next end turn. Until the end of your turn, or end of the turn. Oh, my mind is mush. I have got madness. Please don't discard me. Then you may play this card. And madness for 2. So when you discard it, you put it into exile, and then you can cast it from exile for its cheaper cost. Really great card, nice bit of card advantage. And that brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, well, we've got big vampires that have a massive effect on the game. And Thief of Blood is sort of the epitome of this for me. It just comes in, it's a massive threat, and this is great for, you know, cheating in with our commander because it makes it indestructible, it puts it straight into play attacking. So 6 mana for a 1/1. Okay, I lied, it's tiny. But however, it has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, remove all counters from all permanents. Thief of Blood enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each counter removed this way. So that's loyalty counters, it's +1/+1 counters, -1/-1 counters, it's everything. Depletion counters if you're playing those sort of lands. But this just strips everything away, makes itself absolutely colossal. Stunning, stunning card, will really hose things, and it's coming in tapped and attacking and indestructible if you put it in with our commander. So this is a wonderful card and will have just such a big impact on the game. Then there's Champion of Dusk. If you've gone down the Vampire Tribal route, this is a great card to fling in. 5 mana for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. So it's going to be at least one here, and if we put it with our commander, another, because our commander is indeed a vampire. And then, you know, if you've built up a nice board of vampires, this can draw you 5, 6, 7 cards. Yes, we lose a bit of life, but who really cares about that? Refills, restocks, and then we just get to casting some great cards. Like Necropolis Regent, other great cards are put in with our commander. 6 mana, 6/5 vampire with flying. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 counts on it. So, if this is put into play with our commander, well, this is going to deal damage to our opponent. 6 damage, it gets 6 1/1 counters, it's then a 12/12. Next turn, it hits them for 12. It becomes a 24/23. And, you know, it just keeps growing and growing. But it's not only this creature, it's every other one of our vampires. So everything is just going to be massive. Really great card. Then there's Patron of the Vein. 6 mana for a 4/4 flyer. Then it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. This is wonderful. You know, say our opponent has a big flying blocker, a Consecrated Sphinx or something like that. We can swing in, destroy it, and then whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it and put a 1/1 counter on each vampire you control. So again, if we're going deep into the vampire synergies, just spreading the love makes our commander bigger, just does everything the deck wants to do. Then there's Voldemort. Pariah. 5 mana, 3/3 with flying. Sacrifice 3 other creatures. Transform this. And it has Madness for triple black. So, you know, plays into the sort of Ange Falconwrath sort of idea that we had going on. But then, what do you get on the other side? You get the Abolisher of Bloodlines. Eldrazi Vampire. Horrifying. 6/5 flyer. When this creature transforms into it, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So absolutely hose whoever's winning. You know, if we're winning, well, make everything worse for everyone else. But, you know, you can really target people. If they've got a bunch of indestructible creatures, this, you know, gets around that thanks to the sacrifice clause. Just such a great card. And finally, we got Bloodline Necromancer. 5 mana for a 3/2 lifelinker, Vampire Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target vampire or wizard creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Absolutely stunning, just a big reanimation card, and it's a vampire, so it works synergistically with our commander. This card just does everything you could want it to do in this style of deck. Because these big creatures that we've got, they will get destroyed. They will go to the graveyard. We will mill them. This just buys them back straight away. We don't have to pay any life. It just brings them back and goes, well, there you go. Here's a massive 7 mana vampire. Really great card. And those are my top 5 picks for this brand new commander. Really quite cool, you know. I like a nice I like a nice tribal deck every now and again. And this one, you know, vampires, they play well together, so I enjoy it quite a bit. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this and, you know, found some cards you didn't know about, maybe. I'll see you soon. Bye.